Technology and Member Experience Manager here at Gunnison County Electric Association. And I'm here today to talk about solar net metering as it relates to GCA's new three-part rate design. The first thing I'd like to discuss is the flow of electricity, both traditional flow and the general flow of electricity on solar net metering. As you can see on this slide, this kind of represents the traditional flow of electricity generation on the left side, residential consumer on the right side, and sort of a one-directional flow. With net metering, where folks might have solar on their rooftops, it's a little bit similar. You know, the flow goes from left to right, from generation, transmission, distribution to the rooftop solar residential net metered account. That account is also producing in the daytime from their solar arrays or their solar panels on their roof. That excess production beyond what they maybe are consuming in the house is going back into the distribution system and going to likely a neighboring energy consumer. So that's sort of the daytime flow of it. At nighttime, it really just looks like a traditional flow of electricity because the solar is not producing at night. So what is net metering? Net metering is a statutory billing mechanism created by the state legislature to incentivize distributed renewable generation, in this case, rooftop solar. Solar energy that is not consumed behind the meter in a residential situation and is put back onto the distribution grid is banked. It's not stored. There's no battery system to store that energy for later use. It's all produced and consumed in real time. So the mechanism for net metering, producing and consuming is sort of acts like a bank as opposed to a battery. So there's deposits and credits within that bank, and it's deposited and credited or received and deducted from the grid at a 1-to-1 kilowatt-hour ratio. That's the measurement we use. So net metering regulations, and these are statutory regulations within the state of Colorado. Net metered systems cannot produce more than 120% of their average annual consumption. And I will say 120% of their anticipated average annual consumption can be calculated. So if you are in the process of designing a residential net metered system and you are anticipating extra electric load in the near future, like an EV or air source heat pump or something like that, that can be calculated into that 120% average annual consumption calculation. The other stipulation is it's only applicable to the metered electrical service location. That means essentially you couldn't put a large solar system on your one house and net meter a property a mile away. So if you had two properties, it can only be applied to that property where it's on. We can't transfer those credits to another property. Residential systems are limited to 10 kilowatts, which is a pretty sizable solar array, max, assuming that falls within the 120% parameter. And commercial systems are limited to 25 kW, assuming also that falls within that 120% cap. GCA does offer a supplemental rate for larger net metered systems. So if there was a member who could go above 10 kW or 25 kW, and still be within that 120 kW limit, 120, excuse me, the 120% limit. We do have a supplemental distributed generation rate for that, so it allows members to go bigger if they can do so. So there's three fees, or there's, excuse me, there's currently two fees in our net metering rates. There's the, the energy that's received from the grid beyond that net banked balance. That's your standard energy rate. That's measured in kilowatt hours. So, that's just how many total kilowatt hours you consumed, after the back and forth, the 1-to-1 kilowatt hour ratio. And then there's monthly service availability fee. That's your kind of flat monthly fee to have access to the distribution grid, whether you use any energy or not. And then in 2026, per the new rate design, there's going to be a peak demand charge, which was discussed in greater detail in another video. And that's only going to be for new net metered accounts. If you're an existing net metered account, we do honor your legacy two-part rate. And we'll honor that for up to 20 years from the system, from whenever you installed your system. So if you're an existing net metered member, you'll have at least 5 years on the existing two-part rate, and up to 20 years from the system's installation to stay on the two-part rate. And then after that 5 to 20 year window, you'll be shifted to the three-part rate, which includes demand charge. If you want to stay on your existing two-part rate and you have no desire to shift to the new three-part demand charge rate, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to contact GCA. You don't have to do anything. We have that information in our system, and when you hit that 20-year cap, you will be moved into the new three-part rate design. But until then, you can stay on your old two-part rate without contacting GCA or worrying about that. If you're thinking of installing a net metered system, new net metered applications must be submitted to GCA by December 31st, 2025, and the systems must be installed and in operation by December 31st, 2026 to be eligible for the legacy two-part net metering rate. So if it's something you're thinking of doing, I think now would be the good time to submit your application. There's a way to submit your application online on gca.coop, and it'll explain it in greater detail there. The challenge with net metering and peak demand is, you generally produce most of your energy through solar during those peak hours, and then you consume energy in the evening when you're not producing at your solar array. And that red bar on this graph is showing sort of the peak demand window, when that's that window of time where in GCA's new rate design, we will calculate that peak and charge the peak demand fee based on your highest point in a 30-day period in that window. So it just doesn't align. There's a misalignment between generation and consumption, which needs to be accounted for. The solution is to do solar net metered plus a battery. When you add a battery to your solar net metering system, it lowers the stress on the grid. It would reduce your peak demand charges. It reduces GCA's wholesale power costs because we're lowering our wholesale peak demand costs from Tri-State, and it maximizes that energy that you generated locally. The environmental benefit of that is obviously you're using more renewables and less fossil energy, because mostly, or to a significant degree, the energy generated in the evening is more fossil intensive because the sun's not shining and the wind may or may not be blowing. And there's greater efficiency because instead of buying uh, energy off the grid, which is reliant on the transfer of energy over significant distances, you're using that locally, and you're greatly reducing line loss. There's a certain amount of line loss when energy travels over great distances, so it's just more efficient that way. So, which makes it also more environmentally efficient. GCA does offer some incentives for people who are interested in adding batteries to their net metering system or are designing new net metering system and would like to consider home batteries. We do have a $2,000 rebate for home battery systems. The stipulations are the battery must be dispatchable, which means that at some point it's basically connected to the internet and can communicate with GCA or with Tri-State at some point in the future. We don't have that technology right now, but we are getting there. So it must be dispatchable so that we could potentially have the opportunity to control it with the homeowner's consent. It must be 8 kilowatt hours minimum capacity, which is fairly small. I think most home battery systems probably meet that minimum standard. It has to be rated for elevation because we're in an area where that's a factor. And it must comply with electrical and building codes. And it must have access. If it's dispatchable, it probably has battery system data access. Our other home battery or portable electric generator incentive is a $20 per watt hour rebate up to $500 max rebate. So that's got to be a minimum of 500 watt portable electric generator. And both of these rebate incentives, you have to be a PowerWise pledge contributor in order to be eligible for these rebates. And that's an easy to do. If you're not already a PowerWise pledge contributor, it's easy to do. Any member can do it. So, and we're happy to walk you through that process and what that means. Another incentive that we have for home battery systems is GCA is working with Tri-State in their on-bill repayment program. Essentially, you can finance at a very low rate home energy improvements, including home batteries, through Tri-State, and that it'll just be billed monthly on your GCA monthly electricity bill. Happy to walk everyone through this. Our staff is happy to walk anyone through this. There's a link on our website that'll explain it in greater detail. But batteries are eligible. So if you wanted to put a battery onto your net metered system, but you didn't have the money up front, you certainly could utilize this on-bill repayment program to get that battery installed today and pay it off over time. There's another potential near future battery incentive for net metered systems that would like to install batteries. That is, the Tri-State is developing a distributed energy resource program wherein Tri-State will provide each member with a monthly incentive to be enrolled in their distributed energy resource program. I think it's going to be about $4 a month. They'll pay you just to be enrolled in it, and then they'll pay you for the energy they may dispatch off your battery. There's some limitations on how much energy they can dispatch off your battery, how many times a month they can do it. Your battery obviously will need to have connectivity so that they, if they have an event where they need to shave a peak, they can call on your battery to discharge. So there's an incentive for the monthly enrollment and the energy dispatch. So that's a great opportunity to lower the cost of a battery installation. And that's all I have on my slides. A lot of this information is on our gca.coop website. And if you call our office or stop in, we're always happy to talk to you in greater detail. Thank you. Have a great day.